Hey YouTube, welcome to Pagan Perspective. This is Wednesday. I am your host Megan, and today we are talking about unequal yoking. Hey YouTube, welcome to Pagan Perspective. This is Megan, aka Sabirasri, and today we are talking about the idea of being unequally yoked in a partnership or marriage. So, the yoke word. I think that Rich and Cara have done a pretty good job of explaining what it means to be yoked. The idea of two oxen having one of those wooden thingamabobbies between them. And if they're not hitched up right, then one of them ends up doing a lot of work and can probably get a strained neck. So the idea is that if both people in the partnership are not pulling their weight, then one is doing too much work and inevitably the partnership will fail because they won't be able to share the load and work alongside each other. And so the idea is, if we then compare that to religion, does it mean that somebody's doing more work than the other? So this is where the comparison kind of gets a little bit fuzzy for me. So I broke it down in my head, I guess, into different parts. So the first part that I need to say is about, first off, just the idea that this boyfriend of yours, the person in the description, unfortunately, we had a little problem with finding out who the name of the person is, so I can't say your name, but you reference your boyfriend in it, and you say that your boyfriend pretty much doesn't want to get married because of this unequal yoking. And that's interesting. So what it's telling me is that your partner is basically telling you that you either need to convert or not get married. And that to me is the really bad part of the whole unequal thing. To me, religion is a personal thing. It's a personal choice. And so when it comes to a partnership, as long as each person respects one another, I don't believe there should be pushing the other one in the other direction. I don't like that. Now, that being said, there are, unfortunately, some religious views that don't mesh well. I have a video, a very early video on my channel, very early and very redhead ago, of me talking about pagan dating and the idea of not even wanting to date somebody who isn't of my faith, or at least faith-minded. And what I really mean in that video is not wanting to date somebody who basically can't respect me for my religion. Case in point is actually kind of goes to what has been going on in the world right now. As many of you know, I think Rich mentioned it as well, but on Saturday, was it Saturday? No, Friday. Friday, I think. Yeah, Friday. The Supreme Court ruled that gay marriage is now the law of the land, that no state can deny a married couple. They can no longer deny having gay persons be married in their state. Now, some states are doing things to try and counter that, but this is the law of the land now. It is amazing. It is wonderful. It's so about time. With Ireland doing what they're doing, I mean, this is where the world is. And if you're not there, play catch up, because that's just the way it is. And there are a lot of arguments going around trying to say different things about marriage being between one man and one woman, and this idea that being gay is an abomination and all that. And I don't want to go too far into all of that. Only to say that if you are Christian, you accept Jesus, you actually are not supposed to follow any of the laws of Leviticus or Exodus or any of those, or Genesis. You're not supposed to follow those laws. In fact, it's even stated in the New Testament that anyone who does follow those laws not only is cursed, but they're also then cursed and mandated to follow all the rules of Leviticus, and some of which are pretty bad. So the idea is that Jesus died for your sins and that you no longer are bound and no longer cursed by the Old Testament, and the New Testament takes over. And there's nothing negative that's said about homosexuals being damned or anything like that in the New Testament. There are two places in which things are spoken about. One is about marriage and one is about homosexuality. And so in Corinthians, there is a statement that Paul is making, I believe it's Paul, making to the Romans, talking about basically that you need to not be sinners in a way, and references a well-known fertility cult, a pagan fertility cult that practices, group sex and open sexuality and orgies and things. And along those lines, homosexuality is in there. But it's not just homosexuality that causes the sin. It's all the rest of it. It's living out of wedlock. It's, the rampant liquor use and the orgies and all of this stuff and the lustfulness. That it was the whole thing that he was referring to as just a sinful life. It wasn't the homosexuality was the big problem. It was the general way they were living their life that's the problem. And basically just making a reference as don't do that. And that's for them, you need to be different. It has nothing to do with calling out homosexuality as being a sin, especially if it's done in a loving partnership. So the second part, there's a passage actually where Jesus is talking to his disciples and somebody comes up to him and says, hey, is it okay to get divorced? And this is the statement in which most of the time I hear Christians saying that marriage is between one man and a woman, because at this point Jesus then says, a man gives up his mother and his father to become one with his wife, and they become one flesh, and therefore can't be separated. What God has put together, let no man separate, or whatever. So basically he's saying, you're together, deal with it, no divorce. But it's in reference to divorce. It has nothing to do with, well, then should gay people get married too? Because by nature of what he's saying there, it's that you are giving up your mother and father and you are taking another human being as one flesh with you. So the idea is that you are devoting yourself to that one person. And so what I hear is, well, if the gay people wanted to get married too, well, the same rules apply, just don't get divorced. So that's what I hear in that statement. It is not about about marriage between one man and a woman. If you read the entire passage and don't just read the snippets and things, if you get out the book, which I did, I got out the whole big Bible and read it, and it actually is talking about divorce. So there's a lot of points like that in this whole kind of debate about gay marriage. But the real thing comes down to marriage in this country is not religious. If marriage was truly religious in this country, then okay, maybe I could see a case for it if they really wanted to say that, because then the church would decide. But it's not. Christians are okay with atheists getting married. So, no Christians seem to have a problem with, interfaith getting married or agnostics getting married, atheists getting married. Nope, they don't have a problem with that as long as they're a man and a woman. So really what it comes down to is it's a subjugation issue, where I really believe that conservatives feel like they know that by having gay marriage, they no longer have their rule over women. And it really comes down to the whole war on women thing, which is a whole other topic. So we're not going to get into that. But basically, when it comes to the idea of having a pagan and a Christian, here's where I feel. If it's a Christian that doesn't believe in, gay marriage, doesn't believe in liberal rights, things like that, you're probably going to have a big problem. I mean, that's really the way it comes down to. If they are so intolerant of other people's life choices and the way that people choose to love, I mean, if somebody wants to make, a life choice that they want to live like a gothic person or a steampunk or a clown, I don't care. Maybe they like balloons. And they're not tolerant of that? Well, okay, that's going to be a problem. And then if they're not open and accepting of gay people who, this is the way they're born. This is who they're attracted to biologically. It's just who they are. And if they're not okay with them being able to love who they want and get married to who they want, then what I foresee is them having some serious issues with your religion moving forward. So that being said, you take away sort of the conservative Christian values, and then you get to some of the more open-minded Christians, the ones who, in many ways, kind of take the positive parts of the Bible and find their spirituality within that. Okay, that's pretty cool. I think you can work with that. So I think you really need to decide where your line is of how much you are kind of willing to give up and compromise on certain things and what you're not. And really have that conversation with your partner about it and be open and frank about what you want. I know for me, I'm very open and frank about what it is that I want for my future. I do want to raise my children in my path. It's a hereditary path. It's important to me to pass that on. It's also important to me for my kids to never know the concept of heaven and hell until they're way older and can experience it in an intellectual way. I do not want my children to have fear. I never want the terms God-fearing person or wrath of God or devil or any of that. I do not want that fear put into my children at a young age. Psychologically, it's very harmful. It actually is very detrimental. I've seen it impact children time and again. So for me, that's not an option. That's a place that I draw a line. Now, that being said, other parts, I'm okay with. I'm okay with other positive things and happier things. So it really comes down to where is your bottom line? Where is your partner's bottom line? And can you get those bottom lines to match up? And as long as you can, and there's love there, there's a true love and a want and a desire to make compromise and to make it work, then I think you're all good. So the idea, though, of being unequally yoked, that's something, too, the Bible says that and Cara actually commented on a little bit, but I read the passage in the Bible, and it actually talks about how if you are married, if you choose to live with a non-believer, that it still is a righteous household, because just by the sheer fact of you being a believer, then your partner's okay and your children are okay, and you just can't divorce them. That's the biggest thing that it talks about. In fact, that was one of the biggest things that I was surprised about. Divorce was way bigger in the Bible. Like, that was a huge big deal, is do not get divorced in there, than anything else, which I thought was really, really funny, considering that's, Christians do that all the time. So the other point that I think that I really took away from the whole reading of it was, I believe it was Paul who said it, but there was a point in which he's writing a letter saying that the entire book, entire Bible, can be summed up in one rule, and that is to love thy neighbor as you would love yourself. That's it. Love. So if that is the type of Christian that you have in your life, and if that's the type of Christian that you want to partner with, then I don't see it going wrong, because love will win. That's the end of it. If that Christian in your life is not all about love and brings about hate and judgment, then you probably do have a problem, and it might be something to look into. As a pagan, we're flexible. We're pretty malleable. You can combine paganism with many other religions, and it works great. I think it's because paganism is so fluid and open and accepting, and we do not have this rigidity in our faith that says that we are the only right way. And that's so important, because let's face it, guys, we all have a pretty good idea of what happens after we die. I think all of us say, I think I know what's going to happen. or at least we hope we know what's going to happen if we follow a particular path or faith. But in the end, to know for sure, no one knows for sure until they go through it. And the Christians could be right, the Jews could be right, Islam could be right, Hindus could be right, Buddhists could be right, pagans could be right, all of them could be right. And the other thing is, every single one of them could be right. I think I mentioned this in a previous video at one point. There's an episode of Xena where I think it's Hades or somebody is talking and asks, who this person Xena's looking for believed in. And she's like, oh, he's a follower of Eli or whatever. And he goes, oh, I don't get those ones. They go somewhere else. And so the idea is that we can all be right. And it's just, you go wherever you believe you're going to go. I mean, you just don't know. And I think that the most important thing in this life, though, is to live your life with as much love as possible and as much tenderness and as much lack of judgment as humanly possible. Because in the end, that's what's going to raise good, strong, healthy children, is love, openness, acceptance, and some fun. I mean, really, that's what it's about. And that's how I think a good partnership will succeed, is if there is lots of love, a lot of compromise, and humor thrown in. And I think then you got a winning combination. So hopefully that kind of explains my take on the whole unequal yoke thing. And yeah, I think that's it for today. And congratulations to all of my fellow LGBT out there. We won, and love wins. So, and also, go Team USA. I don't know any of you FIFA World Cup, the Women's World Cup. Germany versus USA was last night, and let me just tell you, that was a game. I was like on the edge of my seat, nervous. So we won against Germany. We are going to the finals. Go Team USA to win the World Cup. I'm so excited on this Sunday. So, and for everybody else in America, happy 4th of July on Saturday. Happy Independence Day. And I will see you next week. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone. Blessed be.